Hey guys, this is Jackie Wilkins. Today I wanted to do a video on tagging off. Maybe if you're new to cutting and you want to understand the mechanics of tagging off, when you can tag off. And in cutting, what that simply means is when you quit working the cow that you're cutting, when you signal to your horse and to the judge that you're done, that's called tagging off. And I just want to talk about the mechanics of it, the correct way to do it, why we do it. And then also, even if you're not a cutter, there are actually some other ways you can apply this technique. And I'm going to talk about that as well. So even if you're not a cutter, you might get some good ideas about this. So what most cutters do is when they're signaling to the horse and to the judge that they are done working that cow, most cutters put the hand that's on the horn, not the rein hand, obviously, the hand that's on the horn, they take it down and put it on the horse's neck, and then they back up the horse at the same time. Now, it is not an NCHA rule that you have to put your hand on the neck, but the reason why most cutters do that is because it's more of a very clear, distinct cue to your horse. For example, when you're practicing your horse on cows, a lot of times you're stopping them, backing them up to correct them or to help them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've told your horse to quit working. So we don't necessarily want to teach our horses that just because we've stopped or backed up that we're done, is the reason why most cutters employ that extra signal to the horse with their hand that they're done. So most cutters do this, but like I said, that's not necessarily an NCHA rule, but that's the reason why they do that. That horse, and I'm not really squeezing super tight or anything like that. The horse can feel it just fine. But that my hand cupped on his neck here is the signal to the horse that we are done and he can release that cow. So in cutting, you can only stop working your cow when the cow has completely stopped with all 4 feet on the ground, or if the cow is turned away from you, or if the cow is so far out in the arena that he's on the other side of the timeline. Those are the only times you can quit working your cow. If your cow is challenging you or moving, you are not allowed to quit your cow unless you want a penalty, which sometimes actually that is a strategy. If you have a really bad cow that's about to run you over, sometimes it's better to take the 3-point penalty instead of the 5-point penalty if you know you're going to lose that cow. So what that's called, when you get off of your cow illegally, that's called a hot quit. And again, that's a 3-point penalty. So those are the rules for an NCHA cutting. And I'll show you just really quick on this horse, a legal tag off. That I'm riding today is he's a hot cat. So I'll show you an example really quick. Oh, we forgot to let all the rest of the cows out. Can you let the rest of the cows out? I'll just keep talking for a minute. Okay, so like I said, I was going to share with you how this can be implemented. Sorry, I think I'm getting out of the view here. How this can be implemented in other situations, even if you're not a cutter. So we also compete, my husband and I and my son, we also compete in team sorting and team penning. Now in those sports, we don't use the same horses as we do in cutting. It will ruin a cutting horse to do that sport on them. But we have other horses that we do team penning and team sorting on. And I like to, even on those horses, when I'm done with the run, whether we've got DQ'd or whether we got, all 10 or whatever, as soon as I'm done with my run, I'll tag off on my team sorting horses as well. And the reason why I do that is it's just a clear signal to the horse. He can calm down and relax. Now, in that sport, it can get pretty wild. It can get pretty intense. There's a lot of speed. You're trying to control several cows at a time. Horses can get really wound up. Now, the horse will recognize, like when you're riding and you're going for it and you're energetic, obviously the horse knows we're in the game. And then a lot of times when, if you've lost a cow, you're like, oh, and you sit back and relax. And the horse most of the time can realize that you're done. But there are times, like let's say you're holding the gate and your partner is doing the sorting. There might be just a lull there. There might be just a moment when you're sitting there and you don't have any cows coming at you and your partner's over there doing his thing. And your horse might think, well, am I done? We're just sitting here. Her body language and her energy has relaxed. Could we be done? So again, I just like to really give my horses a clear, distinct signal. It really helps them to relax, to calm down. You know, they can't read our minds, and this is just another way to communicate to your horse, I am done, you can relax. And it can help to prevent a lot of anxiety. Another story I want to tell you really quick was, years ago we had a barrel racer stop out that was riding a horse that had our breeding, and she wanted to come out and see us, and she brought her horse, and she let me ride her horse that day. And I mean, he was a top-notch barrel horse at the peak of his game. And she let me ride him, and when we went out to the barrel pattern, you know, like most barrel horses, he got on the muscle and he was ready to go. And she told me, just put your hand on his neck like this and kind of like you're tagging off and cutting. And she had taught that horse that that was his cue, that we weren't going to run the pattern, that we were just going to do like an easy gallop or a trot or whatever. That was her cue to him, that you can relax, we're not running full bore. And I thought that was really smart. And again, it took a lot of the anxiety away from the horse. He didn't have to question, what are we doing? And he could relax because he knew that he wasn't going to be running full out. So I thought that was really cool that she did that. But again, if you're going to do that, in that case, you better make sure that you're consistent. Do not lie to your horse, okay? So if you've taught him that we're going to run full bore, we're just going to do a nice easy cruise, and then one day you're frustrated because he's hot and you tell him to calm down, but then you go run full bore, you're going to wreck the training that you just did. So make sure, you know, if you're going to do a cue like that, that you're consistent and that you don't trick your horse or lie to your horse, because that training will come undone really quick. But again, I just thought that was a really cool thing that she had taught her horse, and again, took away a lot of his anxiety, and it was just a clear communication to him. Okay, I think we got all of our cows. I'm going to go see if I can find a good one. So when I tag off, I also want to back my horse up as I'm tagging off, and there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I also want to always turn towards the judge or towards the center of the arena. So my judge is out front in the middle of the arena, kind of where the camera is. Okay, so I could tag off. There was a moment when the cow was stopped, but he's still a good cow, so I decided to stay on. Okay, I can safely tag off there. The cow is completely stood still. I back him up, I turn towards the judge, and go back into the herd for my next cow. In cutting, it's not a rule as to how many cows you have to work, but generally, with the time amount given, most often 3 cows work really well for you. In most cutting runs, even though it's not a rule, most people end up cutting 3 cows. So the reason why, we always back up when we tag off, and we always turn towards the judge. Okay, if I'm working my cow, and my cow's out here, and I decide, okay, I'm done, and I just pick my horse up and whip him back into the herd, several things can go wrong with that picture, okay? First of all, it's not giving the clear view. Sometimes horses will do what we call quit a cow. Like if a horse is getting too nervous, getting scared, getting confused, whatever, especially if you're riding a younger horse, and maybe they're starting to chicken out and they want to quit, and you've taught them that when we quit, we just turn and dive into the herd, that horse, at some point, is probably going to try to do that on his own, if that's what he's been taught. He's going to be like, either I think I'm done and I'm just not sure, or I'm scared and I want out of this, or whatever the case might be. Almost all horses, especially when they're young, might get to a point where they try to quit on you. Now, again, if they've been taught that you're just turning and whipping into the herd, and they do that, and you're at a show, there is nothing you can do to stop them, okay? They're just gonna, because you can't rein. You can't rein your horses while you're cutting. So if they just turn and all of a sudden go into the herd, you don't have much control over that. Plus, the judge might be thinking, I'm not sure. I am not sure if that horse just decided to turn and go back into the herd, or if the person actually had a controlled quit. So it can leave a lot of confusion in the judge's mind as well. So the reason why we back up as we tag off is this reason. Okay, so this horse knows we always quit backing up. Always, always, always. If we quit, we back up. So let's say I'm cutting, and let's say the cow just stands out there for a minute, and my horse is like, I'm not sure, are we done or what? We're just standing here. And the horse starts to back up because he knows this is what we do when we quit. All I have to do is a little kick with my feet. I shouldn't have to steer him. I should just tell him with my feet, hey, stay in there, don't back up, stay on that cow. And that horse knows right away, okay, we're still engaged, and I didn't have to rein him. So it gives you more control. If the horse always knows that I'm backing up, that's the only way I can quit this cow is to back up, and then he starts to do that on his own, you can kick and push him back to the cow and keep him engaged. So that's why you always back up. Also, it's always a good idea on these cutting horses to get them back on their hip. Everything comes from the hip, the power, the movement, everything comes from them being rocked back on their hip. So it's never a bad thing to remind your cutting horse, back up, get on your butt. Even if they've been working good, it's just a good habit to be in. And then again, it gives a clear picture to the judge, especially when you're turning towards him. You're showing that you're not just diving into the herd, you're giving him a presentation of like, here, look, I am controlled, I'm showing you, I have complete control of this, and it was my choice to take off. So, there you have it. That's how you tag off on a cutting horse. If you ever get into the sport of it, that's something you need to know, because you don't want those hot quits. I know, those can kill you, those can kill your run, so. Anyway, and again, even if you're not a cutter, you might have some ideas how to implement this in other ways. So that concludes our video today. You guys have a good day. Give me a shout out if you have any ideas or questions or anything like that. And of course, I would always appreciate it if you join on my channel. Thanks.